Um, Christina Hiromi Hobbs is an independent curator and a PhD candidate here at Stanford in the Art and Art History department. And she has uh, held some research and curatorial positions, not only in the Bay Area, but also in Los Angeles and in China. And she has curated the presence of, let's see if I remember, in the presence of collective histories of the Asian American Women Artists Association at the Berkeley Art Center. So, so my introductions are notoriously very brief because you can find full bios at lasertalks.com, and at lasertalks.com you can also find a link to their webpage where you can find out a lot more. Christina, it's all yours. I ask Kurt and Maya to kill their video, so we give Christina maximum bandwidth, and I'll do the same. If there's any problem, just tell me. I'm here. All yours, Christina.
All right. Thank you so much, Piero, for organizing this series of talks today. My name is Christina Hiromi Hobbs, and today I'll be presenting Collective Histories of the Asian American Women Artists Association, which is based around the exhibition entitled In the Presence of, that I curated last year at Berkeley Art Center, which is a community art space in Berkeley, California. So the show honored the 35th anniversary of the Asian American Women Artists Association, which is also known as AWA. The association was founded in 1989 in San Francisco and is still active to this day. And it has fostered the creative practices of hundreds of artists, performers, writers, and poets in the Bay Area. So for the 35th anniversary exhibition in 2024, I decided to focus on the organization's early history, in part because many of the artists that were involved with the association's founding are now in their 70s and 80s, and I felt it was an important moment to return back to the early years. So I also wanted to return to this question that the art historian and curator Karen Higa poses in her 2002 essay, What is an Asian American Woman Artist? So in this article, Higa focuses on the artists Ruth Asawa, Hisako Hibi, Teresa Ha-Kyung Cha, Rhea Tajiri, and Hung Lu, all of whom, with the exception of Rhea Tajiri, were included in the AWA exhibition. And recognizing the specificities of the artist's personal histories, generational differences, and artistic practices, she concludes, what is the wisdom in grouping the diverse and divergent practices of these artists? So many recent theorizations of Asian American femininity have often been organized around an understanding of gender formation for Asian American women as a more individual process. So Mitsuya Yamada's highly influential essay entitled Invisibility is an Unnatural Disaster from 1979 laments that Asian American women are, quote, the visible minority that is invisible, and argues that essentially recognizing this invisibility is the first step towards visibility. And more recently, Anne England Chang's theory of ornamentalism from a book that she wrote in 2019 names Asiatic femininity as a peculiar ontological state that is produced out of the fusion between thingliness and personness, and therefore is fundamentally tied to objecthood. So kind of reading through these different kind of theories of Asian American femininity, I wanted to return back to Higa's question, what is an Asian American woman artist, through the frameworks of kinship, mentorship, intergenerational friendship, and community building between the artists and the group, to propose an understanding of Asian American femininity as a relational and collective formation. So while it's easy to point to AWA's achievements over the past 35 years, or now 36 years, in terms of the many exhibitions, publications, and slide presentations that they've produced, and certainly the desire to be made visible and to have a venue to show their work has been and remains one of the main goals of the organization. I chose to organize the exhibition instead around the relationships that AWA has fostered over the years to show what is enabled when artists from these diverse and divergent backgrounds are brought together. So in the presence of, it considers what is possible when these artists work in relation to one another and produce their own network of artists, academics, writers, and curators. So as I visited the homes and studios of many longtime AWA members, I noticed the ways in which these relationships entered into their artistic practices and also showed up in the artwork that they had in their homes. Lenore Chin's portraits of AWA members such as Kim Ano and Bernice Bing were the first example of this as I started to think through ideas for the show. And the central question for me curatorially became how to portray a history of this organization through the relationships that it had fostered. And I chose to include works in AWA members' collections that were gifted or exchanged with one another, as well as portraits of artist friends and work produced collaboratively between AWA members. So I'm going to start with a more detailed chronology of the organization, and then I'll show some photographs from the installation. So like I said, the organization itself was started in 1989. So following the Women's Caucus for Art in February of that year, which was held in San Francisco, the artists Betty Cano and Flo Oi Wong were disappointed by the lack of Asian American participation and leadership during the conference, especially considering its location in the Bay Area. And with the support of the art historian Moira Roth, they sent letters to Asian American women artists, leading to the first meeting of the group. Roth, a professor of art history at Mills College, was attempting to produce a slide registry for women artists of color to be sponsored by the Women's Caucus for Art, and the impetus for the first meeting was to gather slides from the Asian American contingent. So during this first meeting in March, Betty Cano presented a slideshow of the entries that they had received among a group of 3 artists and Roth. And it was during the second meeting in May that the Asian American Women Artists Association was formed. So Bernice Bing, an artist who very recently had a retrospective actually at the Asian Art Museum, was in attendance at this second meeting. And in her journals, which are now held in the Stanford Special Collections, she provides a rare firsthand account. So dated May 27th, 1989, she writes, quote, "An important beginning. A group of Asian American women artists is just meeting. On May 22nd, Monday Eve in Oakland at Keenan's studio was the second gathering at 6 p.m. Present were 3 Korean artists, 2 Japanese, and 2 Chinese artists, with guest Moira Roth and Marianne from Mills College Arts Department. There was plenty food and much enthusiasm, conversation, and laughter. We talked from politics to what's happening in the news. I was getting anxious because I wanted to get down to why we are here and where we are all about. Finally, we started to talk about ourselves individual, our art, where we come from, and ethnic backgrounds." And in the entry from the following day, she states, quote, "Today I was in reverie about the gathering, and the thought occurred to me that the direction and energy for the Asian women artists is very timely, and I felt strangely wanting to be a part of it. A different feeling for me, because I never wanted to be a part of a group or a movement. I feel I can learn much from these women about my internalized racism and beginning to relate this to my self-esteem." Unquote. So, though this was only the second official meeting, Bing's journal entries mark the importance of having the space in which these artists could gather and share their personal and familial histories, as well as their art practice, share food, and share opinions about politics. In an interview that I did with Flo Oi Wong, she also describes these meetings as a revelation. The possibility of meeting other Asian American women artists and simply being together, and in the process, learning about themselves through one another, was central to the organization at its inception. So in these early years, Kano and Wong also started presenting slideshows of work by Asian American women, the first of which was at Mills College. And in 1991, AWA held its first member exhibition, Spirit of East and West. So these are some of the earliest exhibition postcards in AWA's history. Spirit of East and West was presented at Berkeley Store Gallery. Awaken on the left-hand side was the third membership exhibition, and Yellow Forest on the right-hand side was the 5-year anniversary exhibition for AWA. And the postcard on the bottom, They Hold Up Half the Sky, was a tribute to Bernice Bing's legacy following her death in 1998. The AWA members produced their first known mission statement around this time as well, which shows how the group from its offset sought to highlight the heterogeneity of its members. They explain in the second sentence of the first paragraph, quote, AWA is a diverse group with a range of styles, subjects, viewpoints, and philosophies. Inclusion and a respect for difference are among its principles. In the final paragraph, the statement also sets forth that, quote, its goals for the visual artists are to be included in major exhibitions, collections, galleries, museums, and to be recorded in American art history. Its goals for the performing and literary artists are to secure performance dates and to create a sense of history of their work. According to Kano, one of the founders, part of the impetus for founding the group was that in order, quote, in order to be successful in an art world dominated by white males, people of color needed to control the whole apparatus of art production, unquote. And therefore, the association has not only focused on organizing exhibitions for their members, but it has also supported scholars and curators by producing publications and symposia. The first publication that AWA produced in 1998 was Of Our Own Voice, which was a catalog of members' work. And the next big project that AWA took on was Cheers to Muses in 2007, an anthology of work by 64 Asian American women visual and literary artists, in which each artist chose an Asian American woman artist or writer ancestor who is integral to their practice. The resulting publication produces a lineage of Asian American women artists and writers, which is the first of its kind. So I'm now going to start showing some images from the exhibition itself. There were a total of 17 artists and poets in the exhibition, including Lucy Arai, Ruth Asawa, Bernice Bing, Teresa Ha-Kyung Cha, Lenore Chin, Terry Acebo Davis, Sherry Arai DeBoer, Hisako Hibi, Nancy Hom, Betty Kano, Jenny Lim, Hung Liu, Barbara Jane Reyes, Pallavi Sharma, Cynthia Tom, Flo Oi Wong, and Nellie Wong. In the interest of time, I'm going to focus on some different pairings of work in the show. But if you'd like more information on any of those artists, I would recommend looking into some of the exhibition publication and checklist. So after entering the exhibition space, there were 2 viewing rooms on either side. In the room on the left-hand side, as you enter, there is an oral history with Flo, Betty, and Kim Ano that was put together by current AWA members. On the other side, there was an homage to AWA's slide presentations. As I mentioned, the presentation of slideshows highlighting work by Asian American women artists has been a part of AWA's educational mission since its inception, and they have presented dozens, if not hundreds of these over the years. This viewing room reproduced the works that were included in the 1992 slide packet and places this work in conversation with that of current AWA members who were invited to submit slides for inclusion in the exhibition. This allowed, on the one hand, for the exhibition to remain open to all AWA members, and it also allowed me to show works from the slide packet, some of which have never been exhibited or have since been lost or destroyed. So this is a view of the central exhibition space. So in this kind of grouping, there are 3 framed pieces on the left, which are Bernice Bing's journal entries that bring you into the exhibition space. In the middle is an intergenerational pairing of a painting by Hisako Hibi, who was already an elder by the time that she joined AWA. next to a sculpture by Ruth Asawa, who was from a younger generation of Japanese American artists, who was also loosely involved with Ewa. And on the right-hand side is a painting by Lenore Chin that I had shown earlier, which I'll discuss a bit more in depth. So Lenore Chin is a queer Chinese American artist and a longtime AWA member who works in both photography and painting to honor the people within her community. Before the Wedding from 2000 shows Kim Ono, another artist and AWA member, and her partner Ellen Myers in Ano's Oakland studio in the moments before their wedding. Chin worked collaboratively with the both of them to stage the studio with objects of significance to the couple, including Ano's own paintings that are on the wall behind the couple and a Buddhist statue, which appeared in Bernice Bing's memorial service following her passing, which you can see here, and a ripe red tomato from Floy Wong's yard, which is perched on the stool next to the couple. The inclusion of these objects of care and remembrance within the couple's wedding portrait invoke these past and ongoing friendships as silent companions of Kim and Ellen as they embark on this new stage in their relationship. Her Chin's meticulous attention to detail in both the staging of the photograph and the process of painting the work through small imperceptible brushstrokes performs her own acts of care as a witness to their relationship. And it's a really remarkable painting. So these are some of the details that show these different objects, like the Buddha statue that was at Bernice Bing's memorial service and this tomato from Floy Wong's garden. So next to Chin's portrait is another kind of portrait by Betty Cano that is entitled To Teresa Too. So Betty Cano and Teresa Ha-Kyung Cha were classmates in their MFA program at UC Berkeley in the 1970s. While Cha passed away in 1982, prior to AWA's formation, her work was included in the association's early slide presentations of Asian American women artists. And through these efforts, her work was rediscovered by the curator Lawrence Rinder, which led to her first retrospective. Cha mailed the postcard with the word being to her former classmate at UC Berkeley, Betty Cano, while she was living in New York, which is this piece here. Following Cha's death, Cano painted To Teresa Too. The first iteration of the painting was rendered in shades of white, the color that Cha was always wearing, according to Cano. However, in the second iteration, she chose to represent Cha through a color that represented how Kano saw her as opposed to how she was seen. Against the light pink monochrome, two mauve vertical striations cut through the painting vertically and begin to widen as they approach the top of the canvas, as if tracing the ascendancy of her movement from the earthly terrain. So the photo on the right is Betty with the painting in her studio to give a sense of the scale of the painting. And on the left is the exhibition postcard from Betty and Teresa's MFA show in 1978. Cha is on the far left, and Kano is next to her. So the Bing postcard in conjunction with Kano's abstract portrait of her was one of the main impetuses for the exhibition and trying to think through the relationships between AWA as an organization and the artists that it touched. So these are some other installation images from the show. So on the right is a work by Terry Sabo Davis, next to a poem by Jenny Lim. And on the left are a series of paintings that Bernice Bing made at the end of her life. The sculptures are by Lucia Rai here in the background. And yeah, you can also see some other images here of a piece by Hung Lu that was gifted to Flo Oi Wong, a book of poetry by Barbara Jane Reyes, And this is a painting by Flo Wong. The centerpiece of the exhibition is an installation by Sherry Orai DeBoer, which faces a work made by Pallavi Sharma that was actually made specifically for this exhibition. And then the final corner of the exhibition includes a painting by Cynthia Tom, a sculpture by Nancy Hom, and an introduction to the Asian American Women Artists Association here that was written by Karen Higa. So the mandala that Hom created was made specifically to honor the organization's 35th anniversary by highlighting central moments in AWA's history and the connections between artists that AWA has fostered. It was produced collectively with the help of friends, including AWA members, and includes offerings of felt flowers and miniature sushi and desserts. So I'm just going to end with some photos from the opening reception, which had several hundred people in attendance and included a potluck and a poetry reading with three of the poets, including Jenny Lim, Nellie Wong, and Flo Wong, who you can see in this photograph. And they read poems from the books that were included in the exhibition, as well as work that they had dedicated to past AWA members, such as Bernice Bing. And I'll just end with these photographs. The photo on the left is of AWA members and supporters, and on the right is specifically artists who are in the exhibition. So it was, yeah, a really great way of honoring that early history. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Christina. First question, this organization is based in San Francisco. So I'm wondering, what is the reach of this organization outside of the Bay Area?
Yeah, thank you. So originally, all of the artists were based in the Bay Area, but now it's actually become open to anyone across really the nation or internationally who wishes to join. So they have an open membership structure, so anyone is able to become a part of the organization.
So this started recently. You have any idea what the percentage is of people outside the Bay Area who is joining?
It still is a much smaller number. It's predominantly artists who are based in the Bay Area. But I know that there's quite a few people based in Los Angeles now who are part of the organization and also in New York. So there's like a whole other generation of artists now who are associated with AWA. But yeah, this very early history of the organization that was coming out of the late 80s, early 90s was what I was focused on more so. Yeah.
Right. By the way, I didn't mention it. If anybody has questions, just post it in the chat. What did I want? Oh, yes, because I'm also curious how, let's say that somebody told you to curate an exhibition, but not limited to the Asian American women of this organization, more in general. How would you, I mean, you started by talking about the invisibility. How would you, is there a network or networks of which this organization is part? How would you be able to reach Asian American women who are not members, either because of the invisibility factor or because they're not geographically, they're not even aware that this organization exists. Maybe they're based in a place where they don't, they don't Google, they don't know that this organization exists.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, I think that it was relatively well known within the Bay Area, but outside of the Bay Area, they're still kind of working on outreach and how to, engage people from other parts of the country and do more events also that are virtual like this one, where people are able to engage from other countries and from other parts of the US. Yeah, I mean, I think there's like this broader question of invisibility, I think was something that was really important to the artists who decided to create AWA back in 1989. And that was a really critical moment within the Bay Area more broadly as well for kind of Asian American arts organizations. So AWA was kind of coming into being at the same moment that there was kind of a lot of energy and thinking about non-Western artists kind of more broadly. So that was something that was happening both within the Bay Area and also in New York with the creation of Godzilla, which was another Asian American arts network that was founded in 1990. So there, it's kind of part of this broader conversation, and invisibility is certainly a part of that. But I think that you can get into some, you know, uh, territory where you're thinking about, kind of margin and center and mainstream. And, I think that that's kind of less exciting to me than actually thinking about how these artists were able to kind of come into themselves by working together collaboratively and in
Right.
connection to one another.
As you curated this event, is there something, a theme, a common feature, something that stood out to you personally?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there was really so much that was yeah, I learned so much, I think, from doing the exhibition. I think what was exciting was just being able to meet so many other people who were somehow associated either with Moira Roth, who used to be a professor at Mills College, yeah, or had some other loose connection to the artists in the show who didn't know about their connection to AWA. As someone who has focused on Asian American and Asian diasporic artists, it was also really a revelation to me that all of these artists knew one another in some capacity or were aware of one another's work in some capacity. So I think, yeah, the biggest revelation to me was that, all of these artists were somehow in dialogue with one another, either like kind of physically or just through different forms of kind of influencing one another. So,
Excellent. There's a comment in the chat. I remember the networking opportunities in cyber physical artist showcases called Joe's Digital Diner, 1995 in San Francisco. I haven't heard of it. Okay,
Interesting. Yeah, I'll look into that.
excellent. Okay, thank you, Christina. You have a project to continue this, a follow-up project?
I hope so. I mean, I would really love to bring this exhibition outside of the Bay Area, actually, because, AWA, again, I think is somewhat well known within the Bay Area, but in New York or in LA, I don't think people really know about the history as much as they do maybe about Godzilla or some of these other Asian American artist groups. So yeah, so that would be the next thing, hopefully.
Okay, good
Yeah,
luck
thank you.
networking with other territories.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.